But you've recently said that our obsessive resolve to talk about racism, which is endemic across the West, all a lot of people want to talk about.
I know.
You know, you're the critical theorists who say it is the problem in the world today. And you say it actually, and I'm quoting here, undermines the sense of self-worth that children can have in themselves, that they desperately need to be able to change their stars and make something better of themselves.
Yeah, well, the idea there is that if you are stoking this sense of victim in the child, and if you're telling him that the establishment is against him because of his color of his skin, it could be because of his sexuality, it could be that you're telling all the girls that, you know, the patriarchy is going to get them, whatever the reason is, if you're telling them that the establishment is against them, then why would they work for it? They'll just give up.
Yeah.
You know, there needs to be a sense of, look, there are obstacles out there. You're going to have to jump over them. So I don't tell them that there aren't any obstacles. I just say there are obstacles. And what are you going to do? Sit down and just think, well, I'm done for? Or are you going to pick yourself up? Are you going to keep going? You're going to get those GCSEs, you're going to get those A-levels, and you're going to get to the best place that you can possibly get to. That is the attitude that you need to have.
Hey everybody, Auntie speaks. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the algorithm. So, I want to do something a little lighter. I've been doing a bunch of heavy stuff lately, and so I want to do something uplifting. So we're going to look at this lady. Who is she? Well, you can see here by the Daily Mail, her name is Katherine, and I am not even going to attempt to pronounce her last name. So who is she? She is a teacher in London who built a school, okay? And she built it in 2014. And depending on your temperament, this school is either a shining example of what a determined head teacher can do within an underfunded state system, or a quasi-fascistic social experiment run by Harry Potter's Dolores Umbridge. Promoting what she calls small c conservative values. Okay? So on this channel, I really want to showcase what is a conservative, because other than racist, most people don't seem to know what a conservative is, and she is a shining example. So her school accepts to 120 pupils per year. 59% of them don't speak English as a first language, and around 40% receive free school meals at some point in the recent years. So it's inner city, and they are poor. Okay, and yet they outperform their peers in far more affluent parts of the country at GCSEs. I believe that's sort of like average GPA. 73% score grade 5. That's not like your level. It's like a proficiency level. It's not like, you know, age 5 or anything like that. Or above in math and English, compared to 43% in England on average. And 75% of her leavers, I believe that means graduates, have been offered places at elite Russell Group universities. How has she done this? Rules, detentions, and a culture of remorseless self-improvement through discipline. No excuses, no answering back. So you want to know what a conservative is? This is kind of it. So she was on with John Anderson, who has a YouTube channel, so please check him out. I've linked the entire clip below. She did an interview with him, and it is just awesome. You want to know what conservatives would do with schools? You want to know what conservatives would do with your inner cities? This is a prime example.
One of the sort of soft paternalism that we hear is they're not responsible for the situation that they're in. We'll excuse them. We won't raise expectations. But you actually place a lot of emphasis on individual responsibility. And if I'm reading it correctly, you think it's very important for disadvantaged kids, the very ones that we usually try and say it's not their fault.
Yeah. Well,
what are you driving at?
Because disadvantaged children, most of all, need you to hold your standards high for them so that they gain the knowledge and the skills that they need to succeed in life. If you keep making excuses for them, then they're not going to achieve the things they need to achieve. And then what happens? I mean, you've always got to ask yourself, when they leave you, when they leave school, what happens to them? If they haven't really learned how to read properly, if they're not numerate, then how on earth are they going to succeed in life?
Well, they become a victim.
Well, indeed. And if you are constantly stoking that victimhood, that sense of victimhood in them, because the other thing is that, look, you can see yourself as a victim or you can see yourself as somebody who's going to succeed. And it doesn't really matter whatever background you've got to see yourself as somebody who's going to succeed because you've only got one life. And you've got to be able to make a success of it. And if you're somebody who sits around saying, life is so hard for me, my father was never around, life is hard for me, I'm growing up in the inner city, life is hard for me because I don't have much money. Well, you can do that, and then one day you'll die, and you'll be on your deathbed, you look back and you say, well, I couldn't really do anything with my life because I was an ethnic minority. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It doesn't matter what, you've got the cards you've got. Those are the cards you were dealt with. There's nothing you can do about those cards, but you can change the way you react to those cards.
This is a perfect encapsulation of what is wrong in our society, not just in our schools, but in our society. But it's way, way, way worse when it's in schools. This is CRT in a nutshell. CRT teaches people to be victims. It teaches you that there's something wrong in the world and you cannot succeed. I've said this in another video. It is literally like placing 100 pounds of bricks on every single child. You do not have the right to do that to a child. If you encourage them, if you make them strong to face all the adversities in life, then you create a child who can succeed.
You are in control of what you do with those cards. And who are we to lower our expectations for these children and say they can't make it? For me, it's just racism. It's straight up racism. And it's racism that I would say is directed also at poor white kids, So it's not just against ethnic minorities. It's against any child who is the other. And too often, the white middle classes other children who are not like them. And they wouldn't do it for their own children. They keep their standards high for their own children, but when it comes to other people's children, they then lower those standards because they feel that it makes them into the nicer person.
This is perfect. What you are doing is racist. Lefties out there, you are the racist. If you believe that someone can't succeed because they're black, that makes you the racist. If you believe that someone who's black can't get an ID to vote, that makes you the racist. George Bush Jr., George W., he had a phrase, and he wasn't my favorite guy, but his phrase was the soft bigotry of low expectations. This can kill a child, not literally. But it's once again that metaphor of 100 pounds of bricks. You are a racist if you don't believe that that child can learn.
Come to the more traditional approach that you've adopted, and I've seen it. You're teaching European literature, plenty of Shakespeare. You've even praised patriotism and the importance of all children, regardless of race, feeling positively connected to their British heritage.
Yeah.
I mean, in Australia, you get the impression a lot of kids are actually being raised, I'm not blaming teachers actually for this, but culturally, we're saying to them, you're inheriting such a nightmarish, oppressive, post-colonialist,
that's right.
Racist society that you ought to be ashamed of it, don't defend it.
Yeah.
You're flying in the opposite direction. You're actually saying to kids with nothing in their own heritage as British that it matters. So what's the value in teaching the Western canon? And what do you say to those who say that's irrelevant, or you're making things that were bad sound good? You're instilling them with bad ideas.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on whether or not you think Shakespeare is worth reading. I think he's worth reading simply if only because he's been influencing literature for 400 years. I mean, they say, oh no, we need to have more black authors. Well, I'm a black author. I've written books, but never in a million years would I have my children be reading the things I've written over Shakespeare because I haven't been influencing literature for 400 years. The fact is that the Western canon is what schools should be about. Like we're saying no to any of that, but what we're not doing is campaigning against dead white men. And we include a lot of dead white men in what we do because they're part of the canon. They write beautiful things. We choose literature according to what we think will benefit them in terms of values, but also with the canon in mind, because we want them to go off and be culturally literate.
That's perfect. That's what conservatives are. We want to conserve the best parts of our culture. If you don't teach the classics, that child will graduate ignorant. Ignorant.
We are looking at British history. We are looking at British literature. We celebrate the Queen's birthday. We sing God Save the Queen and I Vow to Thee My Country and Jerusalem. And we do this with pride because we are all British here. And the idea that white teachers should be telling brown and black children that they're not British, I think it's horrifying. My little brown and black children are just as entitled to call themselves British as any of the white children are. And we're all together as one. What our Britishness does is it brings us together, because when you're in a multicultural community where some of our children are Muslims, some of them are Hindus, some of them are Sikhs, some of them are Christian, we've got children from Eastern Europe, and when I say from, they tend to be second generation, but their grandparents, and sometimes their parents are from India, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Jamaica, from all over the Caribbean. The fact is that when you have all of that difference, you need something to hold you together. That's what makes a country. And that's what makes a country successful. It's what helps to make our schools successful, because we're all bound together by the hymns that we sing, by the poetry that we recite, by the history that we learn, which is our history.
Katherine, I love you. It's just beautiful. Now, here in America, we've done this better, I think, than even the British. Until about 2 seconds ago, literally 20, 30 years ago, nobody even talked about race anymore. The United States is one of the only other places in the world, and I think we've done it better. But Britain's the same, Australia's the same, where you can come to this country, you can want to be a citizen, you come legally, you take a test, and you are as American as the person sitting next to you. And if we don't teach love of country, and we don't have a shared basis of values when you have such a multicultural country, you go adrift and you start being tribal. That's why we call America the melting pot, because we're all different, but we're all the same. We're all Americans. We all love America, unless you're part of the left.
As opposed to feeling so uncomfortable about it. Now, that doesn't mean we don't tell them the truth. We don't not teach them about the Atlantic slave trade. We teach all the good things and the bad things that happen. It's true. Our children understand gratitude. We teach them gratitude. We teach them not just to be grateful to their teachers, but to be grateful to their parents and to their wider families for looking after them. And the thing is that however little you have, you will always have more than somebody else. And you need to be grateful for that. We teach them about being grateful for the fact that we all live in Britain. Like, it's a great country. The argument is very skewed, and some of the loudest voices out there are only critical of some people, namely people in the West. I'm a traditionalist, and I believe that, I love my country.
I'm a traditionalist. That is a perfect way to end this video. That is what a conservative is. Okay? We want to teach the good with the bad. We want them to teach them to be grateful for what they have. Because if you live in the United States of America or in Britain, you are in the tippy top of the 1% of the 1% of the 0.1% of all the people who have lived throughout history. So could we please bottle what this Katherine lady is selling and ship it around the world? She is awesome. Please go support John Anderson below. The link is below. this video should have 10 million views. So thanks everybody. Like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you on the next one.